Good evening. How's everybody? I'm going to do like they do in church. You know how we do in church? Good evening. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Well, I have the honor, because this is my district here, to introduce the mayor. But I'm going to give a little spiel, take up a little mayor's time. He's going to have enough to say. Let me tell you something. I like this here, because this is what you call participatory government. That's what I like about Columbus. Everything's televised, so you know what's going on. But the reality of the situation is that, let's see how smart you all are. It's a test. Who do we work for? Oh, well, come on now. Wait. Right. Who do we, the mayor, the council, and everybody, who do we work for? That's right. Us. That's who we work for, y'all. And so I'm so glad to see everyone here, because we need your input. And the mayor definitely, as the head of this government, wants to have feedback. So with no ado, I'm going to pass this over to the Honorable Mayor, Skip Henderson.
Thank you, Pop. You know, y'all help me. Where's Alexis? Alexis, make sure you take a note. Let Pops finish, not start. Man, it's kind of tough. Don't follow children or dog acts or Pops. That's about it. Now, listen, he did say a couple of things there that are really, really important, and that is that this is all about y'all. This was started by former Mayor Teresa Tomlinson. I think it was a great, great initiative that she undertook to get it started as Let's Talk with the Mayor. We've rebranded it a little bit as Let's Talk Columbus, because we want the focus to be on Columbus, the kind of Columbus that you want to live in, that you want to help build. And there's a lot of folks here to listen to you. So we're not here just to listen to your questions. We're here to take note of them, try to give you some answers. The ones we can't satisfy today, we're going to take back to the different departments that are here, and we're going to get you an answer. I do want to recognize a couple of the elected officials that are here. Sheriff Donna Tompkins is here. Some of our counselors, Gary Allen just walked in, Judy Thomas, Bruce Huff, Charmaine Crabb, and is anybody else? Any of the other counselors? And of course, Pops. So we've got a quorum here tonight. So if you have something really important, we could probably vote. But what I want to do now is I want to ask our city manager, Isaiah Hughley, up, and he's going to say a few words and let you know some of the people that are here to listen to your concerns. But I want to say something about our city manager. I've said since I started campaigning over a year ago, I can't imagine doing this job without this man doing his job. We have a great working relationship. I have confidence in him, and he's been running this government, has a deeper and a broader knowledge of government than most 50 people in this organization put together. So I'm going to ask our city manager, Isaiah Hughley, to come up.
Yeah, Mayor, that is hard to follow, let me tell you. But thank you, Mayor, and it's a joy working with this mayor who had been on council for more than 20 years, and there was no learning curve for him. He hit the ground running, and he is doing a fantastic job. But we've got a lot of department heads here, and I'm going to ask them to stand really quickly, and I want you to know who they are and that they're here. And we've got the two deputy city managers, Deputy City Manager Pam Hodge and Deputy City Manager Lisa Goodwin. We've got John Hutchison, who is our inspections and codes, and so when there are dilapidated houses and overgrown weed and all of that in your community, and you call 311, John and his officers are going to go to work, and they get it done. And thanks to the mayor, for the first time ever in my career here, have we had more than $1 million to clean up blight in this community. He's the first mayor to ever set aside $1 million in the budget to do that. So thank you, Mayor. And so John Hutchison, he has John Hutchison working. I tell you, he's working. We have Pat Biegler. She's over Public Works, and all of your 93% of all calls coming into 311 have to do with her department. They are garbage collection, they are patching potholes, they are street sweeping, and you name it, they're doing it all. Animal care, animal control, Public Works. You have Susan Whitehouse. Now, some taxes are due, October 1st, and then December 1st. Now, she didn't send that out. Our tax commissioner sent it out, but she did the assessments. And Susan Whitehouse is our tax assessor. Jim Arndt is over Bull Creek Golf Authority. He is new, and Mayor, I'll just tell you, I don't want to steal his thunder, but he says when he compares revenue for this August compared to the same time last year, August, his revenue is up. I won't say how much, but done a fine job. And then we've got Rick Jones, who's over our planning department, anything with rezoning, planning for the future, Rick Jones. We have Robert Futrell, who's Homeland Security, important to this government. In front of him, we have Ryder Land, who did not start. He's over emergency management. When there's a storm coming through, things going on, he calls us into the operations center and makes sure that we know and we're ready for whatever the event that's going to occur. Holly Browder is over Parks and Rec, and you know what they do. Laura Johnson is over community reinvestment. If you don't know about down payment assistance and for homes and things like that, you need to know who Laura Johnson is. We have Chief Rick Bourne, our police chief, doing a fine job for us. We got our public defender, Moffitt, Flournoy, doing a fine job. We've got John Redmond, our internal auditor. Rosa Evans is over Metra, and Felicia. I know you were job training. I'm trying to remember your last name. I'm sorry. Felicia Marsha, that's right. Just great department heads. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. And I'm trying to see if we missed someone. But we have a great team working for you, as Councilor Barnes so eloquently said. When I took American government, the one thing that I remember in American government, Councilor Barnes, when I took American government, it says the power flows from the people to the government. Amen. The power flows from the people to the government. We work for you, and we're happy. We're excited to do that. I am not going to talk any longer. I'm going to turn it back over to the mayor that we can hear from you. And the mayor's first lady, the first lady of Columbus, Georgia, is here. Would you wave your hand, First Lady? I had to embarrass her.
I told you I couldn't do this job without him. He just saved me there. I do also want to mention just two more people, Alexis Thompson and Richard Bishop, both in my office. They get here early and set all this up so that you guys are able to ask your questions. And I'm not trying to put a plug in, but I got to thank Chester's. They provide this food, and they've done it at every single event we've had. So we walk through the introductions because we want y'all to know who's here. We want you to know that if you have an issue with anything in this city, the chances are we're going to be able to at least get it to the right person tonight. So with that, this is your meeting, so I'll open it up. We've got two microphones. We do ask you that you use them because this is being broadcast live over radio stations, and it's also being recorded to be aired again, so that the people who are unable to be here will be able to listen to some of your concerns, and it may actually take care of one of theirs. So who wants to go first? All right, well, thank y'all for coming. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, good evening, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Nice to meet you again, Mrs. Henderson. Forgive me, I'm going to pre-apologize before I go ahead and put my foot in my mouth. I may be the only late person in my late 20s here. So I ask that because I may be one of the only ones representing. I would say I'm really curious as to how Columbus plans on improving the talent feedback loop here with the different things that we've been doing around the city. I graduated high school from here in 2010. I've since left and come back and gotten to see a lot of different things going on and changed since I've come back. But I don't know if there's necessarily anyone hyper-focused on keeping young talent around and the skills and jobs and labor things that we are kind of missing in this area that I can go easily find in other places, but my family is not in other places, so that's one of those issues that has me often going back and forth between here and being willing to, run a whole startup in another city, so.
No, that's a great question, and and I'll tell you, a couple of things we've done since we've been in office is try to, even if we can't stop the pipeline of youngsters when they graduate at CSU, leaving town for a little bit, and that's okay. It's okay for them to go out there and kind of get a taste of life, but we want to put a U-joint in that pipeline, and we want them to come back home. And so to try to create an environment where you do that, we've been having a lot of conversations. We've been meeting with CEOs of some of the larger companies, asking them what they're looking for in terms of talent. We're asking them how we can go about making them feel comfortable in this community enough to where they expand. I mean, we're going to continue through our development authority looking to land new companies, but we've got to focus too on trying to grow the ones that are already here. All right, then we've been meeting with, and I get tired of saying, it's the city manager's favorite word, but we use it all the time, millennials, but really just the younger generation. We've had probably, Richard, two dozen young people that we've invited into our office, into the mayor's office on an individual basis. Love to talk with you, by the way. We'll get your information before you get out of here. And we asked them, what kind of Columbus do they want to see that would make them want to put down roots, start a business, chase their dreams, get married, raise a family? And we're getting some really good information, and we've actually talked to them about getting them back together as a group with some of the leaders who are sort of my age. They're the old guard. They're the ones that have been kind of doing a lot of the participatory leading in this community for years, because we want them to be able to sort of bridge that younger talent so that we've got a pipeline full of people that are going to be able to keep the positive activities going in Columbus. So we are trying to gather the information so that we can put that into practice. And there are some places that are already working exceptionally well. The art scene in Columbus, particularly the younger artists, is really, really growing. We've got some younger developers that are investing in properties not only in the downtown area but throughout Columbus. We've got new housing developments that can't really announce them where they are yet, but in South Columbus. We've got a tremendous amount of investment that we're doing on Casita Road in an effort to try to entice young entrepreneurs to launch their businesses in that part of town. So we are continuously working on ways to make sure we've got an accurate target, that we know what we're going after. But we're going to continue to have these dialogues because it's very important that we continue to be nimble enough so that if the climate changes for some of these young entrepreneurs that are looking to do a startup, we have to be able to react quickly to it. So thank you. Yes, ma'am. That's okay.
Now, before I get started, I do want to tell you thank you. A lot of us are noticing what you have done in the community, especially at Rawson Towers. It's much appreciated, much needed. It wasn't being looked at before, and finally we're starting to get things handled, so thank you. Unfortunately, Terman Realty, that is a concern in our community. I do have constituents coming that would like to speak to somebody about handling the situations that they're dealing with. We're talking about some serious neglect. We're not talking about minor stuff. So I'm not sure if you're open for that or if you can direct me in the right direction to handle that. Another thing, since I see public safety here, I also come from a public safety background. I used to work with the sheriff's office as a corrections officer, dispatcher with Columbus 911. One of the concerns that we have in the autism community is how autistic individuals are being treated and how the caregivers are being treated. A lot of this could be prevented. The negative, can be prevented if we had proper training. I could tell you now, as a crisis intervention trained officer, CIT does not work. It is not going to work with autism. We have an autistic child, and we're a household that has training. I know Diane Pope with Autism Hope Center has approached about crisis prevention intervention that is geared towards developmental disabilities. I would like to either see that started, like CIT was, or the easiest route, because I understand how shorthanded Columbus Police Department is. There is a 2-hour session, I know for a fact, that is through the Georgia Public Safety Training Council. That is specific to autism. It is very user-friendly, it's very informative in that short 2 hours. My husband took it for his credits. The last thing is I do want to see Pop Austin funded better. We do need more recreation for people with disabilities, not just the younger adults, but the children. There's nothing really for 5 and below. Then you have the in-between stages. And we do have some groups that are trying, but it would really be nice to see Pop Austin being utilized fully, not just for a small population, but for a greater population in this area.
Well, and you and I have talked about some of these before, and Pop Austin does an amazing job. And the volunteers, together with the staff over there, it is a true jewel. People don't even realize that facility exists for adults with developmental disabilities. But you and I have talked about, there is a gap. There's nothing really available for the children at a younger age. And we continue to try to look for ways that we can address that, and I hate to always bring everything back to money, but trying to find the resources to implement that is just very difficult from a city standpoint. And I think we'll have a better chance of trying to engage with volunteer organizations, and maybe we can find, I'm not committing, but maybe we can find some in-kind resources that the city can provide to maybe give access to a facility where a privately run or philanthropically run organization could operate, because there is a need. As far as the training, Diane Pope and I met and talked, I think, almost a year ago, and so that's on me. We have not really pursued. Now, I know our public safety officers I think they do a good job. I'll ask the chief or the sheriff if they'd like to comment on some of the training. But that's a significant issue, because particularly if there's an issue with an adult who's autistic, if they're not trained properly, and ours I think I'm sure they could be trained better, but if they take some action, some of that is actually completely contrary to what's the best thing to do for an autistic adult. And then if they end up in general population in the jail, it becomes even more of an issue with the sheriff. So I don't know if either one of y'all feel comfortable. We'll pursue some of the training. We'll talk to you about that, because I know our public safety officials, their goal is twofold. It's to protect the individuals they're dealing with, and it's to protect the officers that they have in their employ as well. So we'll look at, if you have a 2-hour program that you think will be adequate and give them the training, we'll take a look at it.
Now, I know the Sheriff's Office has been a big supporter of the autism community, and thank you. The 2-hour portion is actually something that can be ran as part of in-service. It's 2 hours, it's 2-hour credits for your mandate for your certificate to be a public safety officer. Not sure if it does delve into the fire department side for credits, but I do know it will provide 2 hours of in-service training that's required.
Well, even lacking the credit side of it, come on, Sheriff.
Yeah, well, I was just going to speak to it a little bit, that yes, the Sheriff's Office has kind of adopted the autism as part of one of our community outreaches, and we have some special people with special training, but I wasn't aware that there was a 2-hour program online, and that would definitely be something we could have our people do and get credit for. So that's good. Thank you for sharing that. And I would, of course, suggest that everyone do it, because we do have a little, like you said, a little more knowledge of it. We've kind of took the lead on that, but not every single person has it. And you spoke about being in the jail, And we do have autistic people come to jail. We have had autistic people come to jail. And I will say that we are fortunate in Muskogee County because we have a large facility, we have medical and mental health staff that can quickly identify that. And I just have to brag on my folks. The times that we have had it, they clearly and quickly realized what they were dealing with, and we've had real good successes because we knew what we were dealing with, but everybody doesn't, and I certainly understand that. But I'm glad to hear there's a quicker, a quick way that you can get a little extra training that will help you.
And we'll get you, if you'll share that with us, I'll maybe see if Mr. Bishop can just take that, write that down, and we'll follow up on it. And lastly, I'm going to let Director Hutchinson talk about some of the issues with the housing that you mentioned.
One of the things that was passed by the Georgia Assembly this year was House Bill 346. And anytime anybody talks to me, that's the first thing I tell them, because it is tenants' rights. So now there is some protection for the tenants that are calling. A lot of times we get calls and we talk to the tenant and we're like, are you willing to move forward with this? And a lot of them are afraid because they feel that the eviction is coming right behind it. But now, if you file an official order with us and we go out there and confirm to say, hey, the stove is broken, the doors doesn't work, your windows are broken, those are legitimate property maintenance complaints. And so once you have filed that with the city, then you are there protected for the next 90 days. They can't come out there and just immediately try to evict you. They can't raise your rent. They can't change the keys to the doors. They can't do any of that. So that there is a protection now. So we try to put it out there to let people know, because they do have an avenue now. They had an avenue before, but it's just now that they're protected from that potential retaliation from the landlord. So if you let me know, we get those addresses and we'll go check them out.
That'll be great. Thank you.
And the last thing I'll say about that is, we've talked with some of the landlords, and we've suggested to them that perhaps we ought to try to form some type of landlord committee. And we've talked to some of the people that you just mentioned, because we've indicated to them that there are some things regarding housing that we've got to get addressed. It will be much more to their advantage if they are part of the solution instead of having us come up with ways to try to address it. So there was some positive feedback from that, so we're going to continue to pursue that too. Thank you. I want to make note too, Councilor Woodson showed up, and we want to thank Councilor for being here tonight. Good evening, sir.
My concern is the advanced disposal site on Veteran Parkway. Is there any way we can do a land swap to take that out of the city and put it someplace else? It's a health hazard. It is bad for the community. Is there anything that we can do to take it out of the city?
I'm going to pass this one off to the city manager. He's got a lot more information on this than I do.
We have been working with Advanced Disposal regarding that transfer site, and so working with them is ongoing. We recognize the concern, the problem, and where he's talking about, if you're coming down Veterans Parkway or going up Veterans Parkway, when you cross the overpass and you get to, what street is it? Tarleton and Veterans. If you don't know, to the left, you'll see dumpsters, and it's a transfer site where they will bring garbage trucks in and leave the trash there, and other trucks will come in and they'll take it away. It's like a transfer center. We are very concerned about that, and we will continue to work with them. That, in our opinion, is prime real estate. It's a gateway into our community. And so we've been working with them the last few years, and I'll just leave it at that. Just know that we're working on that. We are very aware and we are concerned.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? This is your chance. You've got all the people here that can do something about it.
Go ahead, Mom.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Two concerns. One is the Trade Center. It is extremely handicap unfriendly for getting a person in there. It's not a drop-off point. that you can get close enough that a person wouldn't have to walk a long distance, and even with a wheelchair, it's just not very friendly for handicap. Hopefully there's a plan, or can be a plan put in place to do something about that. Second, I attend St. Benedict Catholic Church over in the Winton area, right off of Rigdon Road. And like most of us, I go and come one way. And one day I just happened to decide to change my route. And I drove through one of those streets, and I was absolutely horrified at the debris, the housing that's falling down, and it's just horrible over there. And I want to know, is there anything in the works to help clean up that area? There's also a lot of people on the corners all of the time, unemployed. I don't say they're homeless, but it's just a lot of people over there. We have a major high school in that area, and I don't hear much about incidents or anything, but it certainly is an opportunity for some of our young people to have trouble getting back and forth to school.
Well, I know on the cleanliness of that area, I know Richard Bishop and I have ridden through that area a number of times because he had gotten a call on it. And we did call it in, and I know Public Works responded and cleaned up some of that stuff right away. Now, unfortunately, within 2 weeks when we went by there, it was just like it was. So we are trying to keep that area cleaned up, and we're working with some of the neighborhood, some of the folks they're working within their neighborhoods to try to help provide other alternatives. I know for the young people, this past year, we were able to with Holly Browder's innovation, create that summer passport to try to give the younger children something to do. And we've recently secured funding to try to bring back the Summer Youth Work Program in Columbus. So we're going to start that this next summer. We're going to be working it through the workforce investment area. Those folks are going to help us structure it. And this is just sort of a pilot issue. We're going to try to get it started with maybe 40 kids or so. My vision is we end up with 200 or 300 kids working in the summertime, and it keeps them from doing negative things on the street. So that's one of the things we're trying to do. And then we've got some other things that we're trying to put into place. And tell me what your other one was. The Trade Center. We'll take a look at the Trade Center. I think the ADA, I saw Haley here a little bit ago, but I think she had to leave. It is ADA compliant, but that doesn't mean it's as accessible as it could be. So we'll take a look at that. We'll try to address that. Thank you.
I would say too, and we'll do it exactly as the mayor has said, but they do offer valet parking, and I know that cost, and maybe they can look at something that would be more friendly in terms of cost to persons with disabilities. But you have that drive-through there, and many people drive in there and they will valet park their car. Yes, and also as I know Haley Henderson was here, as they continue to look at what they might do to improve the parking garage, we'll make sure they take a look at that as well.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right. And maybe we can do something with some type of enforcement that keeps that breezeway open, at least so that there's one lane where people who are dropping folks off can come through there. Yes, sir.
All right. Hello again. Yes, so I stay near like 2nd Avenue, near 29th Street. Recently, there was a park that was just built next to 29th Street Gym. It was redone. And I've been living there since at least like 2003, like 6th grade. It's over 10 years now. And there was no input about like the rebuilding of the park or whatnot. I'm happy it got rebuilt, a very proactive mentality or whatnot. But as we look further on up the river from the Trade Center to the River Mill Center, we're talking about, to me, I went to school for architecture, and to me, looking at that sort of pacing, the Chase apartment homes or look like they're scheduled to be like redone or whatnot. So there should be development along the river. I know that, this can be sort of a tensiony topic for different people, but I'm coming at it from a pretty much like a student standpoint and looking at, economic development for the city and whatnot. And as you have these developers that may be, remaking parks or, doing anything, I just want to know, how do citizens in those areas get their voices heard? Because for me, it just won't, it's not that I don't expect development not to happen, because that's how cities make money, is how you keep things going on and so on and so forth, but I just don't want it to be from the perspective of like, well, we asked the citizens, but, no one spoke up, because I'm there, I'm looking for signs, and I'm not seeing anything, and it would just disappoint me to have my children play in a park that, I had no say in and whatnot, because the park wasn't redesigned for me and my children, because I've lived there and I'm now children haven't aged, and I can't imagine whose endpoint it had. Like, again, I understand it, I'm happy you guys are doing this, but I want to know where I can actually, put my word in, and who else I can hold accountable if I don't feel like those things are being done, because like I said, if things don't go bad or in my neighborhood, it wouldn't be my fault, because I'm here. That's all.
Well, listen, number one, I want to applaud. We appreciate your interest in the community, and I think my first reaction to that would be contact one of your city representatives, and they'll put you in touch with some of the developers. Now, that park, city manager had told me, was about $175,000 park, I think, built with CDBG funds. And I think if you're talking about going up 2nd Avenue, going north on 2nd Avenue, the Mill District is in the process of working on a redevelopment initiative, and the opportunity that we have there is absolutely incredible. The volunteers that are kind of driving this thing are partnering with an organization called Purpose Built Communities, and they build communities around 3 main pillars. One is healthcare, one is education, the other one is affordable quality housing. And we're already seeing some development up there. They tore down Cozy Corners. We've gotten rid of some of the blight. There's a new development planned over there right next to Fox Elementary. Part of this initiative is designed to turn Fox Elementary from a D-performing school to an A-performing school. And what an amazing story that would be, to take a school that had been underperforming, and it's now one of the reasons that people are moving into, or the idea is it would then be one of the reasons people are moving into that area. So you should have input in almost every instance when they have these designs they're putting together. They do provide an opportunity for public input. But with your energy and your interest, we'll get you in touch with the right people, I promise you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Hey.
Glad to see you again.
You too, ma'am.
Okay, so last time we talked about the sidewalks and the crossing guards. I wanted to know, you said you were going to talk to the school superintendent and have a meeting with him about maybe getting crossing guards. Well, I had an idea. What about asking the population of Columbus to be generous enough to protect our children and volunteer to be crossing guards near their homes to protect our children as they walk across the streets? I understand Columbus cannot afford it, so until we could get the money, maybe we can band together as a community and volunteer to help our children.
Well, and in talking with the superintendent, the crossing guards are funded by and overseen by the school district. We do provide some assistance a little bit from the police department, but not in terms of funding or really staffing. And as we talked last time, I know one area that we had some issues with was around Jordan High School, because there was only one crosswalk that was being manned. And I believe they've addressed that, and they've put 2 more. Where is Donna? There she is.
I will say, Mayor, that we did have someone come to City Council regarding that, and that specific one we wanted to address immediately, but we were going to look citywide as was requested at council and by city councilors. So you are looking citywide at crossing, yeah. But you want to talk specifically about the one at Jordan?
Yes, I'll talk about that one. We did go out and meet with a gentleman that lives in that community and also works at that school, and he was very familiar with what students were walking. Sorry. But we did meet with him, and they walked around that whole area. And I don't remember the exact number, but we did go back and add signage and add crosswalks. And then we're going to come back and add ADA ramps because you need those for the crosswalks as well. And then we'll look at sidewalk and if there's any additional sidewalk needed in that area. So we're not through in that area. But we did go ahead and put, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 crosswalks in that area.
Okay. The other issue I actually wanted to address was, I live out in Midland. And it used to be when you drove down the road, you saw this beautiful patch of forest. Apparently, they decided to kill all the trees. My question becomes, what are we putting in that land, and what's going to be done to replant those trees that were chopped down to clear that land?
What particular parcel are you talking about? Are you talking close to?
Right across the street from the McDonald's and the Goodwill.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
behind the Walmart, like you're going
Right.
towards out of town.
That is a major development, and they will have to meet the conditions of the tree ordinance that has been reviewed and approved. I'm sure they saved some trees, but then they will go back and replant trees. They have to meet what's called a tree density unit, and they will replant trees as part of that development.
Are they going to put up any signs to tell us what's going to be put there?
I'm not sure at what point they'll advertise. I think they're still in some negotiations on businesses that might be coming into that area.
I would like to be able to be a part, if they're going to do a committee for that, to let, as a citizen know about how we feel about our trees being done. And before a development that major is done, it'd be nice to have a say-so and say about an area that beautiful.
Okay. Trees are addressed as part of there's ordinances that regulate the trees, and they have to meet certain criteria, whether it's saving trees or it's planting new trees. Specifically the size of the tree and the type of trees, yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you for the question. I can tell you, they introduced you to my wife earlier. She's on Trees Columbus, and every time a leaf falls, I get notified. So and I will tell you that I think Columbus has done an exceptional job overall at trying to protect and improve our urban canopy. There are some initiatives that we're undertaking with Trees Columbus that they're actually cataloging every tree in the Lake Bottom area as an initial start for a re-canopy program, I think, is that what they call it? So we are very interested in it, and I promise you we hold the developers' feet to the fire on making sure that they replace the trees that they take down. And we do have, during rezonings, we do have public hearings, and we talk about the footprint of the site. So, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Amanda Thompson. How you doing?
I'm fine, Amanda. How are you?
All right. I got a lot of concerns. One, I might be getting kicked out because I got to pay my rent, $200 more of it, and it got to be paid by tomorrow. But my concern is the people living in Columbus, they homeless, and when they get kicked out and they have nowhere to go, they living on the streets, and you see them just holding up homeless signs, and I have a lot of concerns and empathy for that. And my other concern is this pothole. If I keep running this pothole, y'all gonna owe me some money because
Please tell me where it is. Look at that field in the morning.
It's right there by veterans. And
By veterans.
I know y'all doing a great job working on the road and stuff, but
If you tell us where on Veterans is it? Do
it's
you know
by
what's it near?
Georgia Power, where Georgia Power used to be at.
Yeah.
Downtown.
Okay. Yeah.
Time to go up it.
Yeah, that's the railroad. Yeah. Is it right by the railroad?
Okay, I think so.
Okay. And I'll tell you that with regards to the individuals that are without a home, we've got a couple of organizations that work very, very hard to try to make sure that anybody that needs assistance, they do their best to help them. Home for Good, Pat Frey, it's a United Way agency, and they work very, very hard for temporary and permanent housing. And then the Homeless Resource Network also works to try to find people into permanent housing. And they can provide on occasion some assistance, so you may want to check with them and we can get you their contact information to see if there's anything that they can do to help you get through this. And, it's a tough deal. I mean, it's just like somebody mentioned the Ralston earlier. We have really been concerned about the quality of the rooms that these individuals were living in. But it's a catch-22, because if the city goes out there, if John Hutchison goes out there and we find a way and we shut them down, now we've got about 250 residents without a place to go.
Yeah.
So,
and the violence in Columbus it's like it's increasing to me. I don't know why. It just feels like it's increasing.
the violent crimes in Columbus they're on pace right now to probably equal last year's, and that's not acceptable. When it comes to, this is one of the things, there's several things that I've discovered over the last 9 months that interrupt my sleep, and that is absolutely one of them. When it comes to violent crime, our objective is perfection, because one's too many. But realistically, we know that if we're continually making an effort to just try to cut off the food supply, because see, there's our public safety, our police department, our sheriff's department, marshal, they do an outstanding job at catching people after that happens, and they can stop some of them from happening.
I mean, it's a way to make money. It's gonna be violence and sickness and stuff like that. But
our challenge as a community is to finding ways to get to these young people before they commit the crime. And that means working with parents, teaching parents some skills that maybe through no fault of their own they lack, to try to help them provide a structure around these young people. That's why when we talk about passports to Columbus and summer job programs, it doesn't sound like anything fancy, but what it does is for the kids that participate in those things, it gives them something positive to do instead of hanging out. Is that going to impact all of them? No.
yeah, I have two little girls, a 5-year-old and a 11-year-old. One stay with her dad because of custody battle, and the other one stay with my aunt because I wasn't taking medicine for my mental health issue. And so I go visit them time to time. They say, "Mommy, you doing all right?" So I'm doing good. And I love you, Mommy. I love you too. And they all seem to be doing good in school.
Well, and we're going to, bottom line is we've got to keep working. We've got to keep our eye on the ball. We've got to look for more ways to try to get into the neighborhoods to try to provide structure.
And if you need a crossing guard, I'll be a crossing guard.
I like that. We may have to. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you. Anybody else? Miss Elamine, how are you? Are you asking a question? No. Thank you.
Hi. Yes, Mr. Mayor, how are you?
I'm well, ma'am. How are you?
Well, first of all, I'd like to invite everyone to a forum on Monday, September 23rd. Thanks to Mr. Rick Jones, we're going to learn all about the TADs, and that includes the TAD that the sister was asking about in Midland Commerce, because I don't think people realize that there have been 7 TADs approved. And so Mr. Rick Jones is going to explain all of that to us on Monday. And in addition, Verona Campbell, Director of Real Estate for the Housing Authority, is going to talk about all of the different communities that have been developed because, as someone pointed out, situations with homelessness are a concern. And thanks to the library, one of the librarians put together some information about homelessness and poverty in the area. So the title of the forum is Economic Development, Poverty, Crime, What's the Connection? And so if I could pass these along for folks to take one and pass it around. Mr. Jones, Mr. Rick Jones, I left quite a few of the flyers out on the planning department table, so they'll be getting around over at the annex. The other thing that I want to mention is I am just so disappointed that the handicap parking was removed from the public access area. I have had to park on 10th Street and walk all the way around. It's been a struggle. I made 2 calls to the Disability Commission, and unless they call me back today, I haven't heard from them. But something has to be done about access for the disabled to the government center. It is a grueling problem. All the handicap spaces on the street gets taken up very quickly, and all of the parking that used to be for handicapped folks right there at the public access security entrance have been removed for service vehicles. And then you have lots of the law enforcement that are taking up spaces on the outside around the government center. So parking for people with disabilities is a real problem. And it was just grueling when I came to your office last week to talk about it after having a meeting on the 11th floor. So me walking and walking and walking, I don't walk too much these days.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I really need handicap parking, and it would be great if some of those spaces could be replaced down at the public access area where you go for the security, because all of them have been eliminated, and that used to be pretty much nothing but handicap parking. Is there anything you can do about that?
We will look into it, and honestly, if they notified me of that, I have forgotten with a senior moment or two. But we'll check into it, and we'll see. I don't know that I was even aware that we removed all of those, but.
Every single one is gone.
Well, let me just say that for security reasons, at the drive-through where citizens enter the government center, you cannot drive through that area and park. There were some handicap parking spaces in there, 4 or 5 maybe, so those are no longer available to citizens. But what we did do is add some parking, some handicap parking on First Avenue, as if you were going to come into the parking garage of the government center. We have more handicap parking spaces there. And then on the 2nd Avenue side, along the east wing, we added more handicap parking spaces there. And as the mayor said, we will look into that concern, but let me just say this. A lot of people, handicap parking decals seem to be readily available. And, I don't know if they're employees, I don't know if they're bailiffs, I don't know who's taking up all of the handicap parking spaces, but we have increased the number of spaces. And so when you drive around through there, there should be something on First or 2nd, but they're all taken up, and they're 4-hour parking spaces. And so if you go to lunch and you work in the government center and you come back, that's a convenient parking space for you. I hear your concern, and we've already said just here, and as the mayor has indicated, we are going to look into it, but I want you to know that we have added, when we took away the drive-through, the breezeway where citizens come in, we added more handicap parking spaces on First, close to the west wing, and on 2nd, close to the east wing, so that citizens with disabilities would have more availability of parking spaces.
Well, tell me this, because I've been trying to figure out for the life of me how to get into that underground parking. I don't know where the entrance is to get into it. The exit that comes out onto 2nd Street,
yes,
that's pretty clear to come out. But every time I drive around on 10th Street, all of that is for official vehicles only. So I can't see how to get into the underground parking.
Well, you can't, citizens, the underground parking is for employees. that parking that goes underneath the government center. That's employee parking. And there's a security issue with that. We are more security conscious today than ever before. You cannot have citizens just driving and having access, or the public, I should say, down underneath that building for safety reasons. And I'm not the person to talk about safety. It would be the sheriff's office and Major Massey. But what we can commit to is continuing to study and add in additional handicap parking spaces around the perimeter of the government center on the east wing side and on the west wing side. But I wanted you to be clear that we have added additional spaces. And I can assure you now, when we go and add more, they're going to go just as fast as those that we currently have.
Well, this is why I know, because everybody has a handicap
That's my point.
parking sticker.
That is my point.
You know, in North Carolina, you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
You could raise a lot of money here, because you got to pay $10 to get one. You could get a second one, but you got to pay another $10. I was stunned when I came here, and it was just free. And so I just think that some things about how things are going are not that beneficial
Yes.
to the citizens. Because if you remove all the handicap parking and you say, we want our service vehicles here, and then you say the underground parking is only for employees, for me, as a person who is seriously engaged as a citizen, I say it looks real bad for citizens that everything is going for the business of the government center and the Columbus Consolidated Government and for its employees, and that we are facing a hostile environment when we come to the government center. And until it's gone, there's a lot of business that's done in the government center, the courts, everything. So it's just not enough parking for people with disabilities around there. And I really hope you do look into it carefully, because what I experienced, having to walk all the way from 10th Street, all the way down 2nd Avenue into the public access area, I was pretty much dead by the time I got there.
And I hope that you have a visual. You know, the government center sits between 9th Street and 10th Street and 1st Avenue and 2nd Avenue. And so there are some service vehicles that park up on closer to 10th on 1st. But most of the parking spaces on that side are handicap parking spaces that they're gone by the time I get to work in the morning. And I have to imagine that there are probably some employees who have access to handicap parking decals, and they use them. I know people all over the community. As I go to the grocery store and other places, everybody's got one. You're right. And so, and my point to that is, we will look at it, as the mayor has said, and we can add more. We can take that whole block. By the time you get there, they'll be gone.
Well, if
so, and then I want to go back to the hostile comment too. Now. Now, I think Council Barnes made the point, and the mayor has made the point. We work for you.
Well.
And if we're hostile, then we need to check ourselves and we need to fix it.
Well, you know, when I say it's a hostile arrangement, you know, I love you so much, Mr. City Manager. So I know you aren't hostile to us. I see you out there with your fraternity and all of that, and so I know you're a real cool guy. But what I do know is that those employees who are parking around on the side, if that underground parking is strictly for employees, all employees should be directed to use that and not the parking around the outside.
Well,
since we don't have access to the underground secured parking.
Let me just say this, and then I'm going to pass the mic on to the mayor. But our employees can park free in the River Center parking garage. They are allowed to park free in the River Center parking garage, which is 1 block over, block and a half. And so we want to urge them to use the River Center parking garage. And some of them, and we can't stop them, they're going to go and move their car every couple of hours And if they've got the grandma's handicap parking, I'm just telling you, and this is not to be hard on employees, but we discourage it. We don't want that, but we know it happens. And so we can add 10 more next week, and I guarantee you they'll go just like that.
Well, you know, I think the employees take clear direction from you, Mr. City Manager, and I'm sure they would from the mayor. So let's try to make it happen.
They don't listen to him.
The city manager, employees.
One last thing I'll say about the parking, Ms. Edelman, you're right, and we're going to have to be continually monitoring the parking situation. You know, one of the great things about that area in Columbus is we're turning into the kind of downtown you see in major urban areas. One of the negative things is we're turning into one of those major urban areas. And I mean that facetiously, but I mean it with regards to parking. And we're so used in Columbus to going down to find the store we want to go to, whipping in a parking spot right in front of them, sitting there for as long as we want, do our shopping, go drive to the next block, go to the next store. And it is going to be hard. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but it's going to be a transition that we're going to eventually have to deal with. And that is we're going to have to react in our downtown the way you do when you go to Birmingham and Atlanta and some of the other downtowns. We're continually monitoring to try to ease that transition, but I mean, it's just the more we grow and the more people we attract, that's a fact of life. It's one of the things we have to try to continually mitigate. Anybody else? Yes, sir. Welcome.
Oh, sorry. How you doing? I got two questions. I sent a couple emails because the intersection where Moon, Williams, and Veterans, where they redid the medians and whatnot, they look terrible. They get cut probably once every 3 months. And whoever's cutting it, they just blow the grass into the road. And Deputy City Manager said that she actually sent an email where she sent for somebody to have a work order put in, but that's been 2 months ago and it hasn't been cut yet. It looks pretty bad for it to be brand new. I don't know what they planted. It doesn't look like grass, but if that could get cleaned up, it'd be good. And my second thing is, there's a couple people in my neighborhood that pick up litter on the medians probably once a month. And when Public Works has people cut the medians, they run directly over litter, so they disperse it everywhere. So, I mean, I try to do my part, other people try to do their part, but it would help if they could have somebody pick up the litter before they cut it. I mean, it just seems logical not to run over it with a lawnmower and throw it everywhere.
I agree. Listen, I live out past that area and I drive past that all the time. And we've actually had a lot of conversations about identifying our gateway roadways. Let me tell you, how many miles of road do we have? 1,000 miles of road? We've got 1,000 miles of road, and with the personnel we have trying to get all the right-of-way cut, mathematically alone, if they work nonstop, it's a pretty daunting task. That's not an excuse, because we know we still have to try to get out there and make sure our community looks good. It's one of my pet peeves. Garbage on the side of the road, and going a little bit to the, I guess it's to the west of there, going on down Williams, I went through the four-way stop, and all the way to the overpass, there was just garbage littered on the side of the road. We are working on the gateways. We are working on the thoroughfares that bring people in and out of our community, of which that is one, and we're trying to give them a little extra attention. But like, I know on my street, they only get out there about twice a year. And I go out there and try to do my part by keeping the stuff in front of my house clear. So we are working on that. We are continually looking for ways to try to expand revenues and hold down expenses so that we can do some more of the maintenance that we know we need to do. Yes.
On the mowing with paper, that's a concern of mine as well. It happens, and it's not supposed to happen. And the director is sitting right over there. How many times have I called you about that?
4 or 5 recently.
You know, we should not be mowing paper on the right-of-way. I have a problem with that. And when I see it, I call her, and you tell me they're supposed to go through and police up the place first, and then go and mow. So we're going to continue to work on that, but just know that I have a problem with it, and I make the phone call when I catch it, and then they got to get someone out there to fix it. But I don't like making that phone call, so we're going to fix it.
And we saw that. Karen, where were we going? And I pointed it out. There was some mowers that was on the way to Atlanta. And there were some mowers in the median cleaning up in the middle. And I said, look at those guys. They're going right over that paper, and they were scattering it everywhere. I didn't know we were doing it too. So we'll work on that. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The old Kmart building on Macon Road, is it being renovated?
About what now? I'm sorry?
Sorry.
The Kmart on Macon.
Yes, on Macon Road, it's being renovated. Are you aware of what businesses coming there? Roses? Oh.
That was easy for everybody but me and you.
That's easy.
I thought it was a flower shop. I don't get out and shop much, I'm sorry. Yes, sir. After this young lady, you come up.
I'm back.
Well, we missed you.
We have my concern is Lynch Road going into Country Line Road where the schools are, and Macon Road, the intersection where that light is that also goes into back part of Buena Vista. The 18-wheelers fly through there like they're on the Audubon. Is there any way maybe the sheriff department or the police department can maybe place a few cops, I call DOT, to come through there and sit periodically during the day? Because most of the accidents that happen over there are 18-wheelers trying to beat the light. They don't want to stop. They will either hit the gas and hit that horn, and they never make an attempt to stop, or they see a car coming, and instead of making the attempt to stop because the light is turning for them, they figure, I'm bigger, I'm better. So they just keep going anyway. Is there anything we can do about that? Because we just had a car accident the other day, right when the kids were going to school, and the fire department had to close down the whole intersection.
Yes, we can. We can monitor. We'll try to get some folks out there to keep an eye on it particularly during, I guess, the time going to school and coming back from school. The challenge we've got right now with our police department, you've heard our police chief tell you that he is down officers. And one of the things they're doing to try to make sure we've got first responders responding to 911 calls is they've cut back on some of the other squads. And one of those, unfortunately, was a motor squad. And that's the one that we place out at some of these intersections. Now, I'll speak with the chief, and we'll see if there may be a couple of guys that we can station out there and try to slow them down. The challenge is that it'll slow them down with the visual of them being out there, and they may even write a ticket or 20. But after they leave, the challenge is trying to ingrain those habits back into the people that are traveling those roads. And the trucks are a big problem going on back to Technology Parkway. So,
thank you, Mr. Mayor.
yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. This gentleman, I think, was next.
Hey, Mr. Mayor, my name is Willie Brennan. My concern is the convenience stores on Victor Drive in South Lumpy Road. Those stores, no one have no responsibility. Those stores be like outside, be very dirty. And you have million of people come in every week to afford business to the graduation. But no one make those people police up, run the place. My other concern is you have children get out of school over there in that area. You have a whole lot of empty buildings over there in that area. Someone should be able to renovate those buildings so those children have some place to go to the library. There's too many children for the library to handle. They be all in the street, I'm not just telling you something. How you may ask the question, how do he know that? Because I go in and out of Fort Benning every day. That's why I see it when I be getting off the way. Thanks.
Thank you. And that's one of the corridors that we're concerned about, but we're really, really hopeful about that corridor. There's been some, with the addition of Westville out there by the National Infantry Museum, and some of the development that's taken place out on South Lumpkin Road closer to Fort Benning. And it's bookended on the other end by some things going on with we don't know what the old farmers market's going to be just yet, but we know it's going to be pretty awesome. So we're hopeful that as we create those two bookends, we'll be able to encourage development going up that corridor, up Victor Drive onto South Lumpkin.
But your convenience store, you know who owns the convenience store out there, right? You ever been out there? You know those people don't care. Only thing they're doing looking for a dollar bill for the dope head. And you go in the store, you think it's back there in the 60s and the 70s, because the only thing that's said and basic is too bad for they smoke dope bottle and all that's a dope hobby. It's very sad to say it, but like we're going backwards instead of going forward with drugs.
We can check if you know that there's that activity going on, and you can let our police department know. They'll get out there and stop that activity. And if it's not going when they get there, there has to be somebody willing to testify that that's what's going on, so that we will make a case against them. That's one of the biggest challenges we've got, not just on South Lumpkin Road and Victory Drive, but also all over the community, is occasionally you're going to have individuals that don't take any pride, and they're not really concerned about lifting up the community that they're taking dollars out of. And that's kind of a tough nut to crack. The only thing we can do is have John Hutchison's team continue to monitor them, make sure they don't violate any codes or any of the laws that apply, and ask our police department to check when you know they're out there doing illegal drugs. And then the other part of that is trying to encourage that development so that eventually they're going to either fix it up or move out, because they know they're just not going to fit in. The neighbors are going to put enough pressure on them. So if you will call, we'll get the police to come out there if you know that they're doing that stuff, and we'll get them to check it out. We'll get the addresses from you. I'm not familiar with the exact convenience store you're talking about. Sheriff, do you have something?
Yeah, just briefly, since we do have a community here, I've been put on the Complete Count Committee for the census that's coming in 2020, and I was really amazed. I'd never learned that much about the census. It's put out every 10 years by the government, and what astounded me was that each person is worth $1,690, I think, $3. So I'm just kind of putting it out for the community that when it starts, like in March of this year, it is very important to Columbus, Georgia, that everybody gets counted, because that's federal tax dollars that can be spent in Columbus, Georgia, because they're going to base that on what your population size is. And that's going to be very important. It funds so many things that I had no idea. Those numbers fund SNAP and so many programs and services that this community needs. And so just as these people, all of these people in the community are active, make sure that you take that information back to your community and say, hey, when that census comes, Columbus, Muskogee County, every one counts. That's the slogan, every one counts, and it's going to be important to Muskogee County.
Appreciate you participating on that. And to your point with regards to the census, if another thing that the census impacts is when people, we hear a lot of folks, I know Councilor Woodson works tirelessly to bring development to her district. And we hear people all the time say, why don't you put a good restaurant in here? Why don't you put a nice store in here? The government can't do that. Those are private organizations and companies that are making those decisions. But if you're not answering that census, you're giving them faulty demographics. They don't know the number of people that live in those areas. So if you fill that census out and you are counted and get all your neighbors to do the same thing, and if you live off South Lumpkin Road, Then when people are looking at places to invest, they'll see, number one, all the infrastructure that the city of Columbus has invested in South Columbus, and number two, they'll see that the foot traffic is there so that you can improve those areas. So I'm glad you mentioned the census, because it goes beyond representation from a congressional standpoint and dollars from the federal government. It hits you locally because it makes a difference on who is looking at your neighborhood to open up a business. You were waiting. I promise I'll get you next. Yes, ma'am.
I was wondering, is there a reason our bus service operates like 6 days a week on a Sunday holiday schedule? I personally know someone who takes the bus to work, and it takes him 3 hours to get from about Floyd Road over to Victory Drive. And is anything being done to improve the bus system?
We look, Rosa Evans is our director of Metra, and I tell you, you talk about one of the toughest jobs in the government. Transportation impacts everything. It impacts your ability to go to work. It impacts your ability to take your children to the doctor. It impacts your access to some of the assistance that some people use. Her department constantly monitors the routes. And it's like a lot of things. When they look at the numbers, if there's one rider on a bus, to them it's like that route is not necessary. But if you're that one rider, now you've got a challenge to try to get to work. You've got a challenge to try to get to the driver's license bureau to get an ID. It is almost like an unsolvable Rubik's Cube. They continually tweak, and I'll let them talk about it. They know more than me, but they continually tweak and provide information to the Federal Transportation Authority so that we can try to be flexible enough to address all the needs of the public. The sad fact is, when it comes to public transportation, there is always going to be an area here and there that the people feel is underserved. We struggle with this with the Mayor's Commission on Persons with Disability, trying to help those individuals who have absolutely no other access to transportation. We do struggle, and we try to provide the information so that Ms. Evans and her people can make the proper decisions. That's not a good answer. It's not a happy answer, but unfortunately it is the situation.
Bus stops with no covering, there's been an improvement. I have noticed more bus stops with seating and even some with some covering. But you're not likely to see it as a reliable mode of transportation if, when it rains, you're going to be standing in the rain.
That's one of my pet peeves, and if we can identify the money, I guarantee you I will push, whether I'm successful or not, to get those things covered. And one of the reasons is because uncovered bus stops are bad for my wife's health. Because every time my wife rides by and sees somebody sitting at a bus stop, sitting in the rain, she picks them up and takes them to where they're going. And it's not a bad thing, dear. It just scares me a little bit sometimes. But no, I understand what you're saying, and we're aware of it, and we're working to try to do the best we can to solve that. Ms. Elamine?
Well, is there someone else who needed to
I thought this gentleman had something, but I guess, I thought I saw you raise your hand. Yeah.
No.
I got to be careful what I ask for.
Just quick kudos to Animal Care and Control. They, working with the social media and all the other rescues in the area, done a phenomenal job of saving animals' lives this summer.
I appreciate you saying that.
Kudos to them.
Katrina is here, and I tell you what, some of the numbers that we see coming across our desk, it is almost unbelievable based on where we were just about 3 or 4 years ago. And they do an amazing job, and and it's a big job. So thank you so much for applauding them. Yes, ma'am.
I'm so glad the sheriff brought up the census because it's especially important now, because the attacks on the immigrant community is going to send a bunch of people into hiding. And we have to really stay on top of that because they have to be counted. And because, in the nonprofit sector, people who are really working to make sure that everybody is counted. We want to make sure the homeless is counted. We want to make sure that the people wandering around mentally ill and everybody in the jail is counted. I spoke to my apartment complex because I know there are people living there who aren't on the list. And I want Lisa, and I want to make sure that she doesn't give people a hard time and that everybody gets counted, because we lose a lot if the count is not up to par. I worked on the census in 2000 in North Carolina, and here, this year, it's going to be very different. It's not going to be a lot of staff. It's going to be talk about online stuff. So we really got to work very hard to make sure people get counted this time, because it's not going to be hundreds and thousands of people out there in the street like it has been in previous years. So people who don't have access to the internet and other stuff, it's going to be a problem. So I hope the sheriff, and I think Ms. Strode, will be saying more about this as we get closer.
Yes,
because we could lose a lot if we don't get a good count.
You're
and
right.
it's a lot more people here, I think, than 194,000. So let's do a full count.
And I appreciate that. I actually got a call from the governor's office, and he asked me to be on the statewide complete count committee. And I'm excited about that because it allows me to be in touch with people who are using some very innovative ideas in their communities and bring them back to ours. Richard Bishop is the liaison. Rick Jones is the administrative head of our complete count committee. And I promise you they're going to do everything they can. This only happens every 10 years.
Yes.
And about 10 years ago with the last one, frankly, guys, we didn't fare well. We didn't do very well. We were identified as one of the communities that was in need of improving their count. So we're really going to be focused on it this year, and we're going to. And as Ms. Elamine said, it's not the number of volunteers and workers they had in the past, so we're relying on you. We're relying on neighbors telling neighbors. We're relying on community organizations telling one another. So it is critical. It is important. Thank you for that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, my biggest concern is the economic development.
Yes, sir.
You know, I follow economic development across the whole southeast United States. And I remember the time that the city of Columbus was semi-comparable to Nashville and Greenville. You know, with the history like Greenville had with the textile mills, they don't took off no more, especially when they had the BMW plant right there between Greenville and Spartanburg. My biggest thing is on the economic development, especially with I want to know, is the Benning Technology Park still for up on plans, the BTW area, and there was one more I can't really remember right now. But anyway, what is the city doing to attract economic development to here? Because you know, I travel a lot, and it really bothers me. It really bothers me, Mr. Mayor, that Columbus need to get it going. It's time to stop playing. It really is.
We may need to put you on the development authority.
Right.
But I will tell you that we're singing off the same sheet of music. We recognize that economic development takes a number of different faces. It takes the startups, the entrepreneurs that the young man was talking about. It takes expanding existing companies, and it also takes bringing new jobs into town. And I don't know that we'll ever do as well as I'd like, but I know they have had a couple of wins over the last 9 months, I know. The call center that is coming in town is going to add about 700 jobs.
Right.
And the great thing about that is it repurposed an old dark department store, grocery store, and they're hiring people from that area. And I think what you're going to see with that, when you drop a big rock in the pond like that, the ripples go way out. So I think you're going to start seeing some restaurants, some retail, because you're going to have this concentrated group of workers. You've got the Mercer Medical School that it was what somebody called it, a 10-year overnight success story. Mercer Medical School, even though it's only 250 students to 300 students and 90 new jobs, the cool thing about that is where it's going. It's going in an area where there's not a ton of development. Well, you put 350 people now in an area that spawns other developments, some of the entrepreneurs that want to launch a sandwich shop. You mentioned the BTW, the old BTW site.
Correct.
That's one of the most, I think we got to be very careful about what we allow to go there. That's a prime corner with a gateway coming in from Alabama off to the west and heading out towards South Columbus. You've also got the tank farm that we got from the Ports Authority. They also gave us some money that we're going to be able to take those down. That's going to be an amazing piece of property for somebody to take a look at a commercial endeavor because it's right there near the river. The farmers market we mentioned, thanks to Laura Johnson and her efforts, they got a grant that is taking care of the brownfields, and it's going to help us mitigate some of the contaminants in there. That could be a tremendous bridge to development in that area. So we've got a lot of pieces in place, but I share your frustration because I keep looking, going, all right, when are we going to start seeing more jobs created?
You know, this city has so much potential.
I
So
agree
much
with you.
potential. You know, I compare the city of Columbus to the University of Georgia when Mark Rick was in with the head coach versus when Kirby.
Got Kirby now.
Either you can recruit or you can't. You know, it's all about recruit.
Man, I like your
Either
style.
you're a recruiter or you aren't.
Well,
They're just
but I will say this. I'll say that the Development Authority is constantly working. I failed to mention the robotics. You know, Fort Benning was recently named a Center of Innovation for Robotics. At the same time, Columbus State University was awarded a program by the Regents that allows them I think they call it a 4+1. It's a 5-year master's degree program in robotic engineering. I think it's the only one of its type in Georgia. Those two together should generate some synergy and help us attract some robotics companies. And that, there's no telling where that can lead. We've also got the film industry. The film, I went out to the Flat Rock Studios the other day, and you know, I'm probably like a lot of people. I thought it was very exciting, but I was a little skeptical. You know, we're going to be the Hollywood of the South. You know, And but I'm telling you, they've got a steady pipeline of projects that are interested in working in Columbus, and that's going to be the key. It's not the big film with the big star that everybody gets excited about. It's the small projects that come in one after another because Columbus State is graduating with a Nexus degree, these young people that are in the film industry. And if we can keep, and the other young gentleman talked about keeping young people home, if we can keep these projects coming in that pipeline, all of these kids graduating with these degrees in filmmaking are going to stay home because they can go right there to Flat Rock Studios and have a steady job. And these kids are graduating making $80,000 a year in the film industry. So there are a lot of things going, and I think what you're going to see, because of a lot of the things I just mentioned, I truly believe this. I'm a little bit of an optimist by nature, but I think we're going to look back about 15, 20 years from now and look at this period of time in Columbus, Georgia as the pivot point for some of the most incredible success that this community's ever seen. Our downtown area, I know people don't like to focus just on downtown. You saw in the paper the other day, there's a hotel being added to the other two that are under construction. So we're going from a downtown that couldn't house visitors right there where it's walkable to having probably close to 500 or 600 rooms down here. We've got two major developments that are out there kind of in dreamland. If you've gone by the 1st and 2nd Avenue, the block between there on 13th Street, you see what they're doing with those. They took the old bank building and the old body shop. Incredible project underway there. We talked about going up north towards the Mill District and the development. And what's exciting about that development is that's rehabilitating an area that was ripe with crime, ripe with blight. It had so many things wrong with it. So that's like a double win because you eliminate those things and you create affordable housing. I'm sorry, I get a little
couple more things, Mr. Mayor, I want to hit on. Speaking of downtown. Does the city of Columbus have a height restriction? Because I seen that counted on the rendering of the hotel like it's going to be 7. You know, that's a major plot of land downtown.
No, they got a bicep size restriction, so I don't know if we're allowed there. Most of that construction is taking place based on what else is around there. And you're going to see some taller buildings.
We can do it, Mr. Mayor. Come on, we can't be scared.
I'm in, man.
And one more thing, Mr. Mayor. The facade board, do they make it mandatory to put red brick? Because, you know, with them condos downtown, it was excellent until you throw the red bricks on there. They put the red bricks, they took the whole pizzazz from it.
Listen, I will tell you that,
I want to know about the fake cable.
Design
Right.
standards are always a touchy subject.
Right.
And I know that particular board takes very seriously their responsibility to make sure that the outside of the buildings don't necessarily look exactly alike, or at least they shouldn't, but they all reflect the same character.
Right.
Particularly in that area where you've got some historic buildings and things like that. But I'll pass it along, and if I show them the picture, they'll listen to you.
And one more thing,
Yes, sir.
I want to, with the government center, if you're going to build it, go all the way out with it. I know I was watching the council meeting one day, and I want to say Councilor Davis, I want to say, he would tell me, hi. If you can build that government center like that in the 60s and 70s, I know you can do it like that in 2020.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Any more questions? We're right at the time when we normally try to cut this off. Yes, Reverend Phillips, we'll give you the last word. You deserve it, sir.
I just want to tell the police chief, thank you. We have a problem in my community, and he got it under control. We want to be able to do it. Chief, I want to tell you thank you for getting the problem we had in the community under control. It's a great feeling to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and see 3 or 4 police cars going through the community. I said, yep, chief on the job. But I just want to say thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Reverend Phillips. Listen, we want to thank you. We want to thank y'all for being here. Thank you for the questions. We thank you for bringing these issues to our attention. I promise you the department heads have been listening. And I also want to thank our employees. I mean, these folks are completely dedicated to one thing and one thing only, and that's serving this community to the absolute best of their ability. They're here tonight after hours to listen to you. And I thank these counselors. I promise you, if you have an issue and you're not sure who to call any one of these counselors or call the mayor's office, and we'll get you pointed in the right direction. And I also, again, want to thank Chester's, and I want to thank everybody for helping set this up. And Pops, any last words?
Hey, look, let me tell you something. I love this kind of questions. Let me ask this question again. Who do we work for? There we go.
There you go. Thank y'all for being here so much. Some of us will stick around if you have questions. Have a good evening.